Well, guys, the time is finally here. The most important stock of 2024 is about to see what could be the biggest pivotal earnings result of the year, and the markets are already starting to rebound based on it. Put walls were hit, levels were, of course, rejected, and in today's video, we take a look at what the options market thinks is going to happen for NVIDIA. We'll also be looking at the metrics. But could the storyline also be shifting to other companies? MSTR is absolutely taking the internet by storm, and some people are trying to short against this. That's a bad idea, but in today's video, we'll break down the dark pool trades and what they really could be. More importantly, though, we need to look at the fundamentals. We've got some spreadsheets to go through, and it's going to be interesting. And with MSTR doing so well, it looks like Mara is trying to enter the game. Are they too late? Could they even replicate it? Let's break down stocks, commodities, and cryptos together right now. This will be a great one. It's not to be missed. Well, welcome back everyone to The Daily Show. My name's Tom, and there is a lot to discuss in today's video because, of course, the most important stock is about to give us its earnings result. We'll go through that in just a moment, but I did want to mention probably what's taking the internet by storm right now, which is MSTR. Now, only about a month or two ago, we started talking about dark pool activity on the rise. As it turns out, MSTR had a huge move. And then it seemed like there were even more dark pool trades going on over the last couple of days. Since then, we've seen even more appear, and it looks like people are trying to short against this particular market. Firstly, don't do that. You do not want to go against strength, and there is a lot of strength when you look at, of course, the MSTR stock right now. Why is this? Well, there are quite a few catalysts we'll talk about in a moment, but just remember, MSTR is financing buying Bitcoin at like less than 1%, possibly even 0% in some cases. And this may not make sense to you, but over the next couple of videos, we'll be breaking it down together. More importantly, we need to also look at what MicroStrategy are doing when they're financing these bonds. Effectively, they're accessing funds that usually could not get access to Bitcoin. So if you think about it, if you have $1 trillion debt market, these guys have a bit of delish for the Bitcoin, but they can't get into it. And in essence, Saylor is allowing this to occur. Now, by doing this, he's been able to, of course, amass huge amounts of Bitcoins. And really, he's all about timing. You know, he timed, of course, 30, 40,000 buying a lot of Bitcoins and down in those lows. Anyone that actually entered into those funds and actually did those deals back then is now looking very pretty. So remember, if you're looking at these markets, you've got to expect Michael Saylor to continuously basically go out and find funds in the markets. Why? He's riding high. Bitcoin's doing really well. We're in a super cycle at the moment. We've talked about it on the channel, and it does look like everything looks incredibly rosy. Now, we're going to break it down over the next couple of videos as I actually investigate it further with some of the experts in the field. And more importantly, I guess it comes back to also understanding certain things. Now, Adrian Morris over on X, I had a good chat to him today. Excellent guy. You can go check him out if you'd like to. Has this particular spreadsheet. And for all you spreadsheet boffins, you may like looking at this and saying, oh, what are we trading at? What's going on? Well, in essence, you can see here, and he's got a new one coming out over the next 24 hours, that basically as Bitcoin rises, you can kind of see the valuation projections for particularly Bitcoin. Now, as we know, things are changing very quickly. So it looks like it's all about these fully diluted NAV numbers. People are saying that 4 is too high. It's trading at around 4 right now, which is giving that 400 plus level. But in the future, if we expect something like Bitcoin to go to 120, 130K, well, how high could the overall MicroStrategy fund go? Well, of course, it can go a lot higher. 525, maybe even $600 would be its price at around that point. And as we see these potential NAV multiples go up as well, which does have a case to happen, we may see even bigger numbers. Remember back into 2021, things went more ballistic than most people could even expect. Companies were being valued at rates that were 300, 500, or even 1,000 times earnings. Never lose sight of the fact that things can totally disconnect from what you believe reality is at any one point. Now, that being said, should you chase something like this? Well, the catalysts are obviously going to be quite a few different things. You've got Thanksgiving, which often gives Bitcoin a bit of a catalyst across the board. You've obviously got MSCI quarterly review and rebalancing. and realistically the possible inclusion here to the S&P 500 and eventually the NASDAQ. Now, I think it's all but assured that eventually this will occur, but the real story probably when it comes to MSTR is it's front running the US Treasury. A lot of people are speculating, of course, that the Treasury will buy Bitcoin after, of course, inauguration of next year, and that's really the big storyline there. We'll go down MSTR a little bit more in this video, and of course, we'll break down the dark pools in a moment, but let's talk NVIDIA, because the big story on NVIDIA is all about these huge movements that we expect. This is one of the largest stocks in the world, and according to the options market, it's expected to move 7.8% positive or negative on the day. But what do Wall Street think? Where are we in terms of valuations for NVIDIA? Well, I posted this over on our X account, links in the description down below, and you'll see here that the forward PE is around 49 times earnings. Is that around one standard deviation from the average? Yes, of course, back in August, we were huge buyers in NVIDIA, talking about how it was trading underneath its average forward PE. And you'll notice right now it's coming back up to the peaks. But this can all change, because what if it does meet its metrics? What if it does end up living up to the expectations? Wall Street is obviously placing it in the possibility that we could see this core wall smashed, and that could then give us a new positive gamma event. Now, how much higher could NVIDIA go? Well, let's take a look at the current multiples. According to Wall Street's average target, they're looking at about 159. They've got a 57% buy rating across the board, which is pretty strong. And we know that they love to do a nice little upgrade if NVIDIA beats the expectations. It's my kind of expectation that we could get into the 180s ultimately here on NVIDIA quite easily. And we've talked about that for a while. And now that we're potentially going to break 150, if that does occur, remember, we would go into a positive gamma event. We've got the options walls in just a moment. Now, what about multiples in general? People are screaming right now, these multiples are too high. I don't like them. Well, what about forward PE ratios? They are high. There's no doubt. Can they get higher? Well, go back to the tech boom and see how high they could really go. This is a great chart here from Wisdom Tree and Mike Zaccardi over on X. And the reason it's good is because it actually has all of the data leading into the tech boom and bust. It also shows and dissects the companies excluding tech from the S&P 500. And you'll notice that we're getting one standard deviation on the top side for this as well. So a market's expensive. Yeah, they're not cheap. They're not, let's say, when Warren Buffett would like to buy them across the board. They're not back at their averages or one standard deviation under. But it still shows you that if we are going into a super bubble, that we could actually have further room to grow. Now, some other big charts at the moment that are going around, US dollar seasonality. We started to see weakness on this about 2 trade days ago, and that has continued through. Some nice movements on a couple of currencies out there. And of course, we've seen retail inflows realistically kind of moving around in the last 4 weeks. People from retail generally going incredibly bullish after the election straight away, and then getting crushed through the last week with, of course, Wall Street now buying up. But if you read the news, you would be incredibly fearful. Why? Well, of course, people are discussing the W word again, and that is always going to have a lot of retailers on the sidelines. So remember, if the markets go bullish, retail will eventually have to FOMO back in, and that is important. 2016 election years to 2024, we do know that there is a pump after markets. We've been talking about the small caps and the differential in valuations here. Go back to see a few of our previous videos on that, plus the post-election pump, the inauguration dump, etc. And of course, this is how Russell 2000 has performed. It's usually been one of the better markets in terms of a post-election buy. And especially in a non-recession year with a good market structure, we actually have a 100% track record of a next 3-month structure on markets. That doesn't mean it's always going to be 100%. It just means based on previous history, we are looking at a pretty strong market here. So that's why we've been talking about dips being purchased up. Market cycles look very similar to this. Again, we cover this in every video, so make sure to go back and watch if you're new. By the way, subscribe, guys. We have a lot of content to come out with. But you'll notice here that we're kind of going the trajectory of a standardized bull market. And a few days ago, we started to love gold once again. Oversell on gold has led to really nice rallies, and it's been doing quite well. Now, let's just quickly go back to MSTR for a moment. Of course, Bitcoin, we are very bullish. Now, why? Well, Bitcoin tends to have a great election post pump. We've also seen flows starting to improve into the ETFs. We've already detailed those on the channel, but do remember, usually Bitcoin has some pretty epic runs on it, and we're starting to see that manifest into some of the hottest new kind of funds on the markets, MSTR. Now remember, it used to be, I think it was Grayscale back in the day, and that was kind of the one that everyone wanted to buy, but cumulative ETF flows are improving. We see here the Ethereum is going up, and in general, we still expect more upside from Bitcoin. Now, recently we saw some large trades through MSTR. We kind of speculated that maybe they were sells. Maybe they were people saying, you know what, enough is enough. The price has gone too high. We want to take some profit. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. They could still be these types of positions. Huge profits banking on MSTR. But then we've seen even weirder transactions. The 2x ETF getting tons of dark pool activity down here. These guys obviously are inverse, so they're under the water a little bit more. And of course, we saw a huge clump of large transactions up here near the highs. Now, when you go over and you actually look at all of the big dark pools over the last year, you'll notice that we got even more over the last 24 hours. Now, is that something that you would go and short? No, you don't short this. You don't have a reason to go short on these markets. And as we discussed the other day, while market structure was weakening, if you believe Bitcoin is going up, in essence, to a degree, these are connected. Of course, MicroStrategy goes beyond Bitcoin with some of the fancy things it's doing in the finance world that we'll break down over on Twitter or X, and we'll also break down here on the YouTubes. But basically, this is a huge movement, and we now see everyone talking about it. So in essence, will it explode? I don't think so. And we'll go through that in more details moving forward, at least not yet. And the reason why is because, remember, this particular fund rode out a 70% decline in Bitcoin, and it did what others could not do. There are also some other big bull cases for it, and we'll go through those soon. SMCI just showing again that large transactions can pay off. This is obviously a huge transaction. Since then, SMCI has bulled heavily. And of course, we've been using large transactions on Chinese stock as well to show us that we're starting to potentially get a little bit of buyers. In particular, the leveraged Chinese stocks did show us buyers. Same thing in silver over the last 2 days. We've seen huge transactions. It's coupled up with great technical analysis, and it's led into a buy. So remember, yes, large dark pools, certainly important, but just because you see them doesn't mean that you want to instigate. If you don't get price action in a replicable way to actually go short, don't use a dark pool by itself. Use dark pools with price action, with data, with flows, with all of the reasons that we talk about. If you need to know more about this, check out our courses, Black Friday sale down below. We have all the replication in there for both day trading, swing in the advanced class, and of course, cycle theory for investors. It's important to replicate any strategy. And obviously MSTR is a new style of product that everyone is now incredibly excited about from the way that they might be able to gamify the system. But the key here is that it could be front running as well. S&P 500 inclusion, NASDAQ inclusion, and of course, potentially treasuries buying into Bitcoin next year, which is one of the reasons, of course, we are bullish on Bitcoin. It's just we've been generally bullish on Bitcoin more than we've been bullish on miners, but I don't like miners anyway, or MSTR. But yeah, interesting stuff as I'm learning a little bit more and understanding exactly what exactly is going on there, because it is a fandangled product. There's no doubt about that. Gold over here, you can see 2.32% on the bullish side. Very good returns. Last 5 days now, the best performing asset class, along with utilities. One of our favorites to hodl into 2025 is utilities. We like hodl on the utilities. And biotech still getting hit up, but stagnating since, of course, we saw that RFK Jr. kind of announcement. Now let's move over to the S&P. It's held its own, closing at 59.16 for the day. It's up a little bit after hours. If NVIDIA manages to do well and we gap up, that could be an island reversal with another island reversal to the upside. We know already that's a fairly positive sign, and it's sitting on the daily 20, which is usually where you'd want to get it to. Now, if we have a look at the futures, it looks even better. The futures actually show us a nice bullish rejection candle here. Not quite the 61.8 fib that we thought it might get to, but 58, if you actually look at the levels here, take a look at this. 58.37, 58.50, 58.30 were the put walls. And as we can see here, 58.45, 58.50, and now becoming 5,900 other put walls. So the market is trying to gear back up to getting into that positive side. We still have very low chance of getting below 5,800 unless something adverse occurs right now. That's based on, of course, the current 0DTE options. If we do manage to get back through 59.20, we could go back into positive gamma. And of course, that can push the markets to all-time highs. And based on, of course, the historical studies that we've done, we still believe that the next 3 months looks good and that currently we're still in a post-election pump with pullbacks like this really needing to be looked at as a buy-up in terms of opportunity. Let's have a look at Tesla. You can see here 350, 360, 365, just trading underneath the massive core walls. Again, we're able to close above 350. That could get everyone very excited. And NVIDIA, well, it only really matters about one number. Close above 150, close above 150, close above 150. That's where the massive options wall is. And if the earnings announcement can get it through that point, it could create a bit of a frantic kind of rally across the board. So very important earnings here for NVIDIA. We'll look at the price action in a moment. Some good news for market bulls that we're holding here on the US 10Y in terms of the overall rejection from these tops. And of course, if we look at high yield junk, it's done exactly what we would suspect. Falling off, now bouncing back up, finding a resistance here. But if high yield junk makes a new high, we'll set an alert together right now. This is a great sign for market bulls. Obviously, we want to see this. And most of you will be able to spot this is also a potential head and shoulders inverse as well. So things are looking okay on the bonds market. The American consumer also looks relatively good coming into Black Friday. Generally speaking, consumer discretionary is doing very well, and home builders saw a little bounce over the last 24 hours. So nothing really too concerning there, even with the news media really terrifying everyone around the world from, no doubt, what is potentially geopolitical tensions rising up. And we've got, I think, the highest level of geopolitical tensions that we've seen in years. You have to go back to the 90s before we even get, and I think we're above that right now. So it's been a long time since we've seen levels like this. The US dollar has been rejecting from the peak due to the seasonality. We're starting to see a little bit of price action weakness here. And predominantly it's been the other currencies, Euro, Aussie, those kind of ones that the trades have been on. Copper's been improving, which is a good sign if you are liking the kind of China trade right now. HSI obviously seeing some improvement, and copper putting pressure on that 417 level, which is a huge deal. If we have a look at HSI, you'll notice here it's holding within the zone, but once it breaks through like a 19,000, maybe 870 or something like that, this is going to be a huge deal for obviously the Chinese market. And we've been looking for large trades. I'll report back if we do start to get even bigger ones in there. So that's something we're looking at. What about iron ore spot? Looking good on the iron ore spot. Futures market a little bit different in terms of structure, but overall still pretty strong stuff there. And gold broke through that 26.25. So gold and silver performing quite nicely all of this week so far after we talked about it. And obviously we like the structure on what these are kind of showing. Now, some people are going into Elliott wave and saying, Tom, we've got another wave down. It's possible, but realistically, I don't do too much Elliott wave on the channel. Sometimes it's worthwhile paying attention to it. Sometimes, you have to ignore it. Obviously, you do get some nice waves, consideration in certain areas. But I think you could also argue that, we've seen a decline in a way that's pretty normal from Elliott wave as well. I like this level, and I think the technicals are presenting pretty nicely. I'd like to see more transactions go through, but certainly those dark pools at the technical zone, remember bringing stuff together is a strong reason. And along with that, I'd like to see gold kind of perform a little bit better. Oil trying its best to stay up. Obviously, UK oil is also one that you should always check out, and it looks relatively strong as well after getting those nasty rejections. Oil is a tough trade right now, geopolitical tensions, all sorts of things, and a lot to process in terms of fundamentals. So it's a very difficult one. Tesla remains bullish for now, 346, obviously 350 being the big closure zone to get it through this 361. And if we're able to get through 361 and 350, we could be going towards 400. So I think the next target, if we go above 350, is 400 for that stock. Obviously, NVIDIA looking pretty solid, trying to come into that 150 zone. If we break through, as we've talked about quite a few times in terms of extensions on fibs and stuff, we could be looking at a 175, 180 for the best stock in the world. And it is still the best stock in the world. Let's see what Jensen can give us. And it's bouncing off that daily 20, which it's found once, twice, 3 times, and 4 times now, general buyers, which I think is important to note. What about the Russell 2000? Beautiful. Look at that nice rejection off the golden pocket. Love that kind of stuff, guys. Obviously, this will be a little bit around NVIDIA's announcement, just because it'll be used as an excuse for catalyst. But it has changed trend now on the 2 hour towards the bullish side. And pullbacks, we'd have to think, will be met by bull demand at this point. The wall of worry is a thing. NASDAQ also bouncing after making a new low. And this looks pretty good on the charts as well. All of these are actually fairly strong structure points towards bullish movements. NVIDIA will be the announcement that makes or breaks it. Let's talk about Bitcoin. So let's go into Bitcoin for a moment. I want to do Ethereum first. So I've said for a few days now, Ethereum's look kind of crappy on the charts. And realistically, it has continued to kind of look kind of crappy on charts. Is it in just an accumulation for the next big breakout? We still think that Ethereum will do better in the future, but it may be in for a pullback. And I'm getting a lot of alerts here on Bitcoin. It's not that I don't think it'll go higher. It will, in my opinion. But again, trading and investing are different. Would I be terrified if I was an investor or somebody that was looking at swing into the position base? No, I wouldn't. I think it looks very strong, and an MSTR hype just shows you how this could really start running, especially as more people join in on the Bitcoin movement into 2025. The big thing though here is going to be, could we see a pullback? And I think that you would be naive not to believe it's possible. We're starting to see some exhaustion signs. We're not getting them in price action. This is actually what you call a melt up at this stage, a series of higher highs and higher lows. And the market is effectively just coiling on its way up. And you're never short what's called a dull market. So I wouldn't go against it, but I still think that there's a possibility of coming down to 80, and that could be a very interesting zone. Now, as I like to look at when it comes to any of these currencies, I like to look and see whether the other ones are weakening. So you'll see here Solana also weakening over the last couple of sessions, and this looks like it might be trying to come back down to that kind of 220 level. So again, weakness in Solana, weakness in Ethereum. Will that leave into Bitcoin? If we have a look at MSTR for a moment here, this is crescendoing in terms of hype on the markets, and it rightfully so. I mean, it's seen huge amounts of bull runs. A lot of people loving this thing. Huge dark pulls through here, and then huge dark pulls up here, and some stop signs kind of telling us, well, maybe this thing is overbought for now. Could it go higher? Yeah, it could. And again, we want to break it down in the future to how realistic this thing could go ballistic. But do remember, it has liked the daily 20 a little bit, and this is a very large move. So at this stage, it's probably still under where I could see some valuations going, but it has hit into an extreme move with some big transactions and volumes. So do you want to enter in here? Well, it depends on your time horizon. But for me, it's not a short, nor is it probably a buy right here. I always like to get a little bit better price. I'm sure most of you guys do. And at this stage, I think you have to have a healthy level of optimism and a healthy level of skepticism about the current price. Let's see how it plays out over the next coming week. If you enjoyed today's video, guys, please remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and obviously a shout out as well to everyone that shared some charts there that we posted for today's video. Some good stuff. And I very much enjoyed going and doing some research on some of these things for today. NVIDIA. Let's see what happens. Obviously, Black Friday sale. If you want to check out our replication strategies, follow us on X. And of course, follow us on LinkedIn as well. We're posting over there into 2025. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye for now.